Right, Jack, I'm going to go straight out the block and say this was the least representative testing session we've ever had in Formula One history.
The least?
Yes. Do you know why? Because we've had wet weather running around Bahrain, number one. Number two, it's been windy. And number three, it's been freezing.
Well,
so, to be fair, I mean, what can we do with this information?
Look, with this information, it was more about teams getting in the laps, understanding the cars. Obviously, 80% of the grid has at least one new driver in their team. So I think it was more getting them drivers up to speed with the cars that they'll be in this year. And you can always take something from testing. I don't think they're fully representative, but there will be some representation of. There'll be other tracks throughout the year that will be similar temperatures that it was in Bahrain. There'll be other tracks that will be as windy as Bahrain was. So you can see how your car is dialed in them sort of weather conditions. So testing always has an element of it being for the whole season being good, but I mean it wasn't great testing in terms of finding out the running order.
No, and usually we can sort of gauge, especially when Bahrain is the first race and they sort of stay in Bahrain.
Well, we're in Australia, aren't we? First race.
We are, exactly. So
I like
it
that.
still is up in the air. At the end of this video, we will give our predictions on the running order. Obviously, you know, it's still testing, so we can't be for certain, but we're going to give our predictions based on what we've seen. But it was just interesting, wasn't it? And one thing I will say is, I actually mentioned this to you the other day, is Mercedes look really good. But is that because the conditions suited where their car was strong last season? Or have they ironed out the issues and they're just good now? Like, what's going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, we could start with Mercedes. I mean, they looked on pace, didn't they? In terms of one lap, anyway, for sure.
Yeah, they did.
I think George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, they seemed relatively equal considering the sessions they were in. I know George kind of put a banker down a bit more at the end of testing day 3. But day 1, day 2, I think George and Antonelli looked relatively equal. Antonelli did very well for his first testing. Obviously, Mercedes racking up the most laps across the 3 days as well.
They did, yeah. They did.
Only one more than Haas in second, but still the most. So yeah, it was a very good test for Mercedes. I think they got their short runnings in, they got the quali sort of runnings in, they got their long race pace runs in as well. Which I think they were the only team that really got everything that they wanted in. Actually, if you look at it as a whole, in terms of eking out the potential that they wanted to get, I think they were probably the most satisfied team across the whole testing.
I'd agree. Them and Haas, I think, are on an equal playing field of they sort of probably know where they're at.
Yeah, I mean,
going into the first race.
I think the thing with Haas was, for me, well, with Haas, I think the only time that they actually showed like one lap pace was right at the end with Ocon. It was like day 1, day 2, and then the morning of day 3. It was like Haas are just doing the laps, looking good. I mean, the engine cover came off Behrman's.
Oh, that was funny, wasn't it?
That was quite.
It's not the first time that's happened either.
No, it wasn't.
Haas, so.
And then suddenly out of nowhere, Ocon put in a lap that was like, "Oh, hello, Haas are here to play."
Yeah.
So yeah,
everyone writing Haas off.
Haas will be very happy with theirs. I think Haas and Mercedes had very good running in terms of the whole program that they wanted to get through.
Yeah.
I think arguably the only two teams that probably got through every single program that they wanted to, really.
Yeah, definitely. Haas and Mercedes, I think, had a very good test. Let's talk about Ferrari then.
Yeah.
Ferrari, and we'll get to this more at the end when we talk about the running order, but I've been sort of digging through reports and tech analysts and stuff, and they all seem to think the data suggests that Ferrari are the fourth quickest team. And Craig Slater also reported a similar thing in his piece that he did with Ted Kravitz on predicting the running order, their predictions. I don't know why they are presumed to be the fourth quickest, because when I actually go look at the data myself, I see things that suggest that Ferrari are almost there, if not, sort of equal on level playing field with McLaren, or at least Mercedes. So I don't know what's going on with Ferrari. Did they have a good test, or have they left everything on the table? What's going on with Ferrari?
It was a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I think each day was different for Ferrari, but different in a good way.
Yeah.
I think day one, I think Charles, on his first day of testing, came out the block, set good laps, did his running perfectly. He wasn't like going to set the screen alight, but he was getting the runs in, get the mileage in, get everything that he wanted to in. It was a good day for Charles, and I think the program set up for Lewis is more to dial him into that car around a Grand Prix circuit. So because obviously Lewis testing the SF25 round, Maranello, Fiorentino track. He obviously it's not a representative track in terms of a Grand Prix circuit, whereas Bahrain was. So I think day one was more getting Lewis acquitted with the car, which is potentially why he was a long way behind Charles on day one. But I think day one was a good day for Ferrari. Day two was a very good day for Ferrari in terms of single lap pace. Both drivers up there, only being beaten by Carlos Sainz, which was mega.
Yeah, mega from Sainz.
Yeah, I don't know where that Williams came from. Yeah, and then day three happened. And I think the thing with the media, Craig Slater, everyone like that, they take the most recent moment. So Ferrari's day three, let's be honest, overall, from the data, it looked shocking. Day two, the car looked stable, compliant. The drivers could do whatever they want with it. Day three, the car looked all over the place. It was understeering. They couldn't hit apexes. It looked like a handful. The only theory that I could come up with to have that different in performance between them 2 days is, could Ferrari have found a sweet spot on day two and then they were just experimenting setups potentially on day three? I mean, the point of testing is to change different levels of your cars to see what works and what doesn't. And if it doesn't work, everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon of, Ferrari are not in it, Ferrari are not there, Ferrari are awful this year. If it works, everyone's going, Ferrari are phenomenal, but they've found a set of other teams haven't, so we don't know. I think it's quite over the top saying Ferrari are fourth quickest out of Red Bull, Mercedes, and McLaren. I don't think they're the quickest, but they're not the fourth.
I'd agree, because I had a look at the data as well, the long run data and the quick lap data, and it is Ferrari are firmly second quickest over race pace and 1 lap.
Yeah,
it's something like they're a tenth of a lap slower than McLaren over a lap in a race distance, which obviously taking into account tire wear, driver ability, conditions on track, that could go either way very, very easily, and Ferrari could be quicker or McLaren could be a little bit further up the road. So, that's nothing, right? That's a second over 10 laps. If you've got DRS, that completely whittles that down. So race pace, they were there. And like you said, day 3 was a little bit of an outlier, but like you said, testing is there to test things, and we don't know what they were testing. So people saying that they're 4th quickest, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why professional analysts were saying this as well. I was just like, well, it's not what I've seen. And also, Lewis looks really comfortable.
It's what we've went on through all last year. It's recency bias.
Yeah, and we've spoke about it last year a lot. And I saw after day 2 as well, someone made an edit of Hamilton from a lap from FP2 last year in Bahrain and a lap from testing this year. And oh my God, the difference in his confidence, the way just... the way he's trying to drive the car is exactly the same, but the way that Ferrari responds to him was completely different to the way that Mercedes responded to him. So if that was anything to go off of, I think Hamilton, if he's got his confidence, that's all that matters. I think the Ferrari will do the rest.
That's what Ferrari. I think that's what was so confusing about day 3 is the way Hamilton could throw the car in the way that he wanted on day 2. And then day 3, the car wasn't responding the same, which leads me to suspect that Ferrari were changing wing levels potentially. Anything. They could have been changing anything with their setup to try and optimize things to see what works and what doesn't. I think that's the main point of what Ferrari might have been doing day 3, which is why they potentially were so far back compared to the other teams.
The thing is, we know that as well, that we know that they're going to be in there. We know they're going to be in the fight. And we know that potential, as we saw in day 1 and 2, is in the car. Regardless of what happened on day 3, it looks like that Ferrari, like you said, can hit a sweet spot. So, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, Ferrari, again, just on their amount of tracks, slap bang in the middle. They're the 6th with 382 laps. So they got decent running. Obviously, Hamilton ended day 3. Didn't come out for the last hour and a half or so. There was some form of issue with that Ferrari, which stopped him from doing his long runs at the end of that session.
Yeah.
So that's not ideal for Ferrari in terms of Hamilton didn't get his long runs in on day 3. But they should have enough data to go off. I think Ferrari's testing was a good testing in terms of they know what's gone on. They shouldn't be worried. Whereas to the outside eyes, you might be a little bit worried, but from what you hear in the news. But if you look at it, if Ferrari look at it, I think they'll be happy.
I'm taking what they say with a pinch of salt because I firmly believe they're up there, but we'll get to that. Let's move on to Red Bull then. Let's talk about Red Bull for a sec.
Red Bull, last in the amount of laps, 304 laps.
Now, I don't think Red Bull had the worst testing. It certainly wasn't glorious by any means. There's definitely one team that had a worse time than Red Bull. We'll get to them. But I don't know, a little bit quiet, I thought, from Red Bull. Over the last few days, I haven't heard much from them in terms of everyone's sort of maybe talking about Ferrari. I don't know if that's the Hamilton effect. People maybe more focused on Mercedes and McLaren. Red Bull, have you got anything to tell us about Red Bull?
With Red Bull, I think it's kind of quiet on them because of how close Max Verstappen was to being top of the times at the end of day 3. I think that's why it's quiet down on that, because there was a lot of talk at the start of day 3. Red Bull were going to look like they were struggling.
Yeah, there was.
But then, obviously, Max was pumping in times at the end of 3, and he was right up there. Could have been the fastest, if not George Russell just pipped him. So, single lap pace, Red Bull looked good. Don't get me wrong, Red Bull do look good. They didn't get long runs in, though.
They didn't get many.
Not to the extent of Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren did.
No, they didn't.
Which, when they did, they ended up abandoning, which they appeared to be going out on the long run, and then they abandoned it on a couple of occasions. I thought I
Yeah.
saw, which would suggest a worry to me, because when a team in testing, especially, goes out on short runs and they're absolutely fine on short runs and they look quick, but they try a long run and they abandon it every time, is a worry in terms of a race for me. And I think Red Bull might have quite a bit of work to do before Australia. I mean, they could be pulling a massive bluff, but if you're pulling out of long runs during testing, would suggest there is an issue with the car.
Now, they did have a reliability issue.
Yeah.
In day one, quite a significant one. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't amazing for them during Liam Lawson's session. And Max, we saw a little bit unsettled, spinning into turn one at one point.
Yeah.
It just was a little bit lackluster from Red Bull.
Yeah.
I think, my theory is, I think this car is probably going to be Red Bull's worst car of these regs, and I reckon they are solely focused on 26. Is probably my prediction. I think they're going to be one of the earliest teams to have switched completely everything to 26. And I reckon their goal is going to be to have allocated some of that extra wind tunnel time they got from finishing third in the constructors last year to 26 as well. And I reckon just, to win that title, to get a front foot in the new regs is going to be crucial for them, especially if they want to retain Max Verstappen for the limited years he has left. Because, we know he's not going to be around for much longer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I will say about the Red Bull, I think, well, in terms of what you hear from the drivers as well, I think this car that they've got this year is easier to drive for the drivers, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's quicker.
No. Like we said, Verstappen gets quicker when the car gets pointier, but that doesn't necessarily make it easier to drive, especially for Liam Lawson as well. As we saw with Perez and as we saw with Albon and Gasly, like, it's all the same.
Yeah.
So, Red Bull need a car that's easy to drive, don't they?
Yeah.
Well,
that's Red Bull, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
They've got work before Australia. Let's just put it that way.
They do have work. If my eyes are darting down, I am trying to find the exact numbers for the race pace comparison, by the way. I have memorized it, but I am trying to find Red Bulls because I did forget. But I want to let you know Red Bulls. But until I find that, let's move on to McLaren, shall we?
They didn't have that much race pace running, though.
Which is why I want to find it, because I want to see the data we do have. I want to see what...
Might not have the data.
There is some data. It'll be from their longer
minimal
runs.
Data out there, though.
But I want to see where they're at from what we know at the moment. But anyway, let's move on to McLaren then, shall we? Because McLaren, I think McLaren had a quieter testing than Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. Well, not Red Bull, but Ferrari and Mercedes particularly. Kind of went a little bit under the radar. Had a few issues though. I felt like they have a very, very quick car, but it looks slightly unstable at points, I thought.
Yes, I think the McLaren looked more unstable towards the rear of the car than what I expected it to. However, very quick car. And if you want a team with data for long runs, look at McLaren.
Yeah, McLaren were all up
there
in there.
Was a mega stint from Lando Norris at the end of day 2.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Mega stint from Lando.
There was.
And Oscar did similar day 3. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
McLaren's race pace can be described as unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because that was at times phenomenal compared to the other teams. I mean, I would be kind of worried at looking at their data for the other teams.
They had very, very good race pace.
Race pace. I mean, single lap, we didn't see much from them, actually. So they were never really up there in the timings. Obviously, Lando day one was. Other than that, they weren't up there in terms of the single lap timings. They were thereabouts, but they weren't like up there like Ferrari was day two, Williams was.
Yeah.
For some reason, Mercedes topping them off. But on race pace, they looked relatively unrivaled, really, to me.
Well, I thought from what I saw, I thought Ferrari were close, but
Ferrari,
not
Ferrari was the
mega close.
closest.
It was about a tenth and a half within a tenth and a half a lap within McLaren, which is quite a lot of time.
In general, it was a tenth and a half. However, there was Lando's last stint. Did you see Lando's last stint gaps?
Yeah, he had a very good last stint.
5/10 each lap on Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah. Yeah.
5/10 on Kimi Antonelli at the end of each lap. I think it was about 3.5 to Charles.
You got to remember that this data is an average.
The data is an average.
It's an average. So, yeah.
To average that, look, I do think McLaren are the fastest on race pace. Do I think it's 5/10, 4/10? No.
No, definitely not.
But I think Ferrari are the closest challengers to that. But I still think it is around 2/10 gap.
McLaren are comfortably the team to beat.
Yes.
From what we've seen.
I think from testing, they have put themselves as favourites.
But I don't think Ferrari are too far away. Personally.
Neither do I.
And if Mercedes have fixed their issues with the tyre temps and stuff, then they're not too far back. We will see George or Kimi win a few races this year if that is the case. We will definitely see. We definitely will see Ferrari win races this year. I'm sure we'll see Max win a few races, but McLaren will win the majority. I reckon. It is just looking that way. It is just looking that way.
Yeah.
Which obviously puts it into question. Then is it going to be? Is it Lando's or Oscar's to lose this season?
Lando's.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, then.
I'm not debating it. But Lando's.
Well then, we'll have to see in Australia. Let's move on to let's talk about Williams then, because Williams were quite interesting, weren't they?
Yes, Williams were very interesting.
This, by the way, this baffled me. So this, I was saying this to you the other day actually. So this testing is relatively just went how I expected it. There was no surprises for me. McLaren at the front, Ferrari very close behind, Red Bull, Mercedes, they're thereabouts at the front four, whatever, right? The midfield, can't really define it. They were all doing their own thing. It was kind of how I expected it to go, except Williams decided to have really good one-lap pace and okay race pace. Like,
yeah.
it the front of the midfield, which I was not expecting.
Yeah, I mean, some were saying, the start of day 3, some were saying, could they challenge the top 4 teams?
Well, on one-lap pace, it looks like they can. From what we saw from Albon and Sainz.
It does. However, I think we get it every year. A team does glory runs.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
And they go slightly more underfueled. I mean, we saw it with Zhou for the past few years.
Yeah.
I kind of think Williams might be doing that illusion.
Yeah, we've seen it from Sauber a few times, actually, haven't we?
Yes.
Years gone by.
I wouldn't get too far ahead of myself in terms of them challenging top 4. However, from testing, I wouldn't put it past them being 5th best team this year.
Yeah, they could be.
They definitely could be. But there is one there's one team for me that I think could challenge them though.
And let's just
I
go
think
right in. Let's move on.
Battle of two
Okay.
for fifth this year,
Yep.
and it's between Williams and Alpine.
Yeah, it probably is Williams and Alpine from the data we've seen.
Pierre Gasly day 3 was looking menacing.
He was, and you know who isn't too far off the pace either?
Jack Doohan.
Yeah, he's surprising me.
He
actually.
wasn't as far off as I thought he would be.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, it looked promising for Alpine in terms of Doohan and especially Gasly.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be saying it's nailed on Williams' 5th battle in potentially top 4. It could be a battle for them to get 5th with Alpine. But I think them two teams probably slightly ahead going into the start of the season as the top of the midfield.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of another team who we thought might have been top of the midfield, Haas. So Haas were interesting. They did a similar thing last year. Didn't look amazing in testing when it came to timing, but we spoke about them a little bit earlier. They got one of the highest amount of laps done. They did really good long runs, collected a lot of data. Didn't do that many short runs, but the car looks reliable. The car looks stable.
Well,
Ollie Behrman,
the bodywork just being stripped.
no. The bodywork don't look stable, but the car itself, the chassis looks alright.
Yeah, the chassis all right. The bodywork.
No, the bodywork, no, definitely not. Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon look happy. It looks like a team ready to challenge for serious points, but obviously the lap times make it seem like they're not going to be in the position we thought they'd going to be in. They're a hard one to predict because it's only testing. They could come Australia, they could be, easily 5th and far down the road from anyone else in Formula B. But also, if Williams are now with the pace they've got, if Alpine pull through with the pace we think they have, it might be a bit harder for them.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think obviously last year Haas did a similar thing, and me and you were both fooled with that, and we were like, "Oh,
We
Haas
did,
are
yeah.
nailed on 10th."
Yeah, we did. We were.
They looked abysmal last season. I'm not falling for that one again.
No.
Do I think that they are the best of the rest, or the best of Formula B, let's say, going into Australia? They could become the end of the season, but going into Australia, no. However, I do think they are probably best of just after Alpine and Williams, around 7th. I don't think they'll last. I think they have a very competitive car, and if they develop it right, they could definitely get 5th in the championship this year. But going into Australia, I don't think they're quite there yet.
Yeah, and all I'll say is if it is going to be as close as we think it's going to be, that Williams Alpine Haas battle for 5th is going to be tasty.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? If Nui can pull some magic out the bag for Aston Martin, are they in there? Who knows? That could get interesting.
Let's go on to Aston Martin.
Yeah, let's just they had the worst testing of any team. Let's just put it. I mean, that was pure ass.
They had
from
a
Aston
horrible
Martin.
time, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I mean, Lance Stroll was ill from like most of yesterday as well, which.
Yeah, Lance was ill. I mean, he missed last year's with a broken wrist.
Yeah, maybe man just doesn't like testing. He just finds excuses.
Yeah, he's just not finished his holiday yet. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently Alonso wasn't. He had a kind of a little flu as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. Aston, they just something went wrong after the other thing went wrong after the other thing went wrong, didn't it?
And the car genuinely looks like it's going backwards.
It does. It does. I mean, there was points when I was watching it, and I was like, the car looks better. And then as time went on, it just got worse.
Yeah. And the thing is, we spoke about Red Bull potentially saving a lot of their resources for the new regs. I think Aston Martin are the #1 team saving everything for the new regs.
I don't know. I think there could be another team that we haven't said yet that might be.
Possibly, but I will argue though that I reckon because the car that Adrian Newey has inherited isn't his car.
Yeah.
He's going to want to make a difference. And what is the point of having Adrian Newey continue someone else's work when you've got a blank sheet in front of you?
Yeah, no, I think Adrian Newey's on the 2026 car now.
Yeah, you don't pay Adrian Newey £100 million to work on the 2025 car. You pay him to put all the resources into the next car. So, I don't know.
But ultimately, you
interesting
still
one.
want to be as high as you can up that championship for your prize money.
Well, yeah, I don't think Aston Martin care about prize money.
Well, they should.
They should, but the thing is, Aston Martin are like one of the richest teams on the grid with Lawrence. They don't need the money, and if they finish lower in the championship, they get more wind tunnel time. So it's a win-win-win for Aston Martin, really. And they've got Fernando Alonso in that car next year. So, and they've got Adrian Newey. Like, Aston might as well just sack the season off and just finish 10th on purpose. They might as well.
Well, it's been going that way since they were second, so
I can't believe they were second.
Me.
The fact that they were second 2 seasons ago just blows my mind. I cannot believe that. Anyway, we've got 2 teams left.
Yeah, go for the team that I think is the team that's focusing on 2026 probably first, and that's Sauber.
Yeah,
I think it's a no-brainer with Audi coming in that they're focusing on just on 2026. And I think the most secure rookie is Bortoletto as well. Because I don't think he was brought in for this season.
Oh, no.
He was brought in for 2026, which would indicate to me, unless he does a Sargent or a Latifi, he's in for 2026. It's pretty much confirmed.
Yeah, his seat is probably, apart from Max Verstappen, is probably the safest seat on the grid right now.
I would say Charles as well is pretty safe.
Or Charles, yeah, because the Bortoletto, he's in for the experience this season. The car's going to be nowhere. They're going to be 10th, no matter what. Not even Aston Martin's drop off could put them behind Sauber.
Well, you never know.
Well, yeah, you never know. But yeah, I've got Lance Stroll after all. But yeah, Sauber are firmly 10th, and I think testing showed that there was never any glimpse. Well, like you were mentioning, Zhou even sometimes went top of the timesheets, in some of the sessions in previous years gone by, and Bottas and Kimi and even Charles when he was there. But they were just there, weren't they? They just existed.
Yeah, they did just exist. I mean, they had a pretty okay test, though.
Yeah, it was a solid test, but they're driving round waiting for Audi to slap their logo on that car.
That's pretty much it, isn't it? They're waiting for Audi. And I think they're the team that's probably... I would say right now, obviously, you've got the top 4 teams, they're the top 4 teams. But if you look at the other 6... I would say they're the most likely to potentially do a Brawn 2009 next season.
It's bold claim. Bold claim. I mean, okay. Before we get into RB and then obviously our ranking of the performance, where we think they're at. Just give me a quick rundown. In which teams do you think are focusing on 2026 first and prioritizing that top to bottom?
Sauber number 1.
Yep.
I think they were probably on it from... Well, they probably started doing it in their pit stops last year, to be honest with you, at the time they took. So, yeah, I put Sauber number 1. I think Aston Martin will be second with Newey after Newey announcement. I think Red Bull straight after that. I think they want to give Max dominate another era of Formula 1. I think Mercedes will be 4th.
Yep.
Because I think they want to get back to the front after this era of being abysmal.
And we know Mercedes can build a good engine. And we know it's going to be dominated a lot by engines. A good engine, so.
I think Williams are 5th. I think they want to bring back the Williams of old. Um,
Is it just a mixed bag from there? Kind of, it doesn't really matter.
yeah, from there it doesn't. I think Ferrari, Alpine, Haas, and McLaren. From there, really, they're all focusing on 2026. But I think, in terms of McLaren and Ferrari, they know that this year is their final year to possibly secure a definite championship for either driver or constructors. So they've gone for it.
Yeah, they think they're sort of prioritizing a little bit more on 2025 because they know there's a chance of winning a championship or both.
Yeah, I think Alpine was shit scared at the start of last year, and they don't want that again. I just think Haas want to prioritize 2026, but they're that small of a team. They don't want a repeat of when they had Mazepin and Mick in and they were miles behind. So I think with them four, they're less thingy about 2026 than the others.
They're just existing.
Don't get me wrong, they still want 2026 and they're still looking at 2026. They're still in it. But I think the others have got a more of a priority ever since the Audi announcement for 2026. I think that's what's all Sauber have thought about.
Yeah.
I think ever since Red Bull were third quickest team, they were like, fuck this, we're going for the next era. I think ever since Mercedes produced that turd of a car, they were, right, well, this era is done, we'll go for the next one. So, and Williams, as we know, they've spent so long not at the front where they used to be.
And they're speaking, I mean, James Vowles has even said he doesn't care where they are in 24 and 25.
Yeah, so they just want to try and put Williams back to where they were. So I think it logically, especially with Newey going to Aston Martin as well, logically it would seem like them six sort of teams would be the more focused than the other four.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So,
Let's talk about RB then.
RB.
Yeah. Car looks
Well,
nice,
this
but does it perform good?
Year, do you remember the hype around them this time last year?
I do.
They were supposed to be the team to bridge the gap.
Yeah. I remember.
No, they're just not.
And to be fair, they were, bar Aston Martin, best of the rest last year at this point because they had the 2022 Red Bull car. No, 2023 Red Bull car.
Yeah.
A lot of the parts from it, should we say. They claimed it was still their own car, but I mean, how much of that we believe, we don't know.
That car's not staying white, by the way, after seeing that testing.
Oh, no, definitely. By the end of the season, it's carbon black with a yellow bull on the front of it.
Yellow bull's pissing me off.
Bro, it looks so nice.
I don't like...
Although...
No, but do you see what I mean? You see the dark blue behind?
Yeah.
Imagine if that was dark blue where the yellow was. That would look so good.
No, I like the yellow. I think the yellow looks busted.
It's two Red Bull. The Red Bull has the exact same yellow. It's two Red Bull.
I get that point.
They've lost their identity.
I do get that point, but I enjoy it.
They're being bitch slapped by their team, that sister team.
Well, they are owned by Red Bull. I mean, come on.
I don't care.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not much to say on RB.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't phenomenal for them, though, was it?
No, I mean,
they racked up a fair few laps though. Third, 454.
I know, yeah. But I think it's just going to be a season of survival for Hadjar, the whole team. I think if Yuki does well and Lawson doesn't, there's an opportunity there for Yuki. But if that
do you know what's interesting?
What?
With that, obviously, with Max's shenanigans last season, he is one penalty point away from a race ban.
What Max Verstappen is? Well, if that Red Bull isn't up to scratch, that could come very quickly.
And who is the reserve driver?
Yuki Tsunoda.
We see Yuki and Liam in a Red Bull together.
Now, that would just end the debate, wouldn't it?
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
That would end the debate. I'm sick of hearing about this debate, but if Max got banned and we had to put Yuki in that Red Bull, it would just end the
if
debate.
Max gets up to some shenanigans as well,
yeah,
in the second race of the season in Bahrain, is it Bahrain? No, it's China.
China.
In China, if Max gets that penalty point in China, obviously Yuki's in for the third race at Red Bull. In Japan.
Yuki wins his home race. Could you imagine? That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
That would be a phenomenal story.
At that point, Lawson just needs to leave. Yuki won his home race in a Red Bull. He just needs to, Lawson, just get out of here. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
In theory, this year we could see Yuki and Lawson at Red Bull together.
It's not out of the realms of possibility.
No.
Okay, right. We're going to go from 10th to 1st. Each of us naming the team we think is there in the running order. Obviously, testing still.
This is for the start of Australia, right?
Yeah, this is for the season. Yeah, this is for the start of Australia. This is for qualifying Q1. This is where the teams are going to be, right? Okay. In 10th place, who do you think is going to be 10th come Australia?
I think it'll be Sauber.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing else there. I don't think we need to say much else. You know, they're slow, right?
Yeah.
9th.
Racing Bulls.
Yeah, I agree. Racing Bulls as well for me. Any particular reason, or they're just there?
I think they're just there. It doesn't look like they have the pace.
Fantastic analysis. 8th.
They genuinely don't know, do
no,
they?
They don't.
If you look at the other teams that are supposed to be in and amongst them, they don't.
No, they don't.
Right, they could even potentially be behind Sauber.
I won't go that far.
Wow.
I won't get that far.
We'll see.
8th.
Aston Martin.
I agree. I hate putting Aston Martin 8th, but I just think they are.
Great analysis.
No, I think come the end of the season, even if they stay 8th, best car, I don't think they finish 8th in the constructors, because I think Fernando Alonso is Fernando Alonso, and he'll do Fernando things.
I don't know. I think they could.
No, I think Fernando has a good enough season to drag him up a bit, but
we'll see.
But yeah, they probably are 8th. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. 7th.
Haas.
I agree. I'll go Haas. Yeah, 7th. I think we've got the same list here, haven't we?
I think pretty much. I mean, 6th Alpine.
6th Alpine, but interchangeable with 5th Williams.
It could be but we're saying who do we think will be in Australia? I think Alpine 6th, Australia, and Williams are 5th in Australia.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's the order. Do I think that's how it will stay partway through the season? No. There'll be times where Alpine are ahead of Williams, but come Australia, I think the order is Williams ahead of Alpine.
What I'm saying is I don't know.
From what we've got from testing, I think you have to.
What I'm saying is I don't know.
It's close. Don't get me wrong.
I don't know. I think up until that point.
Don't sit on that fence.
I'm sitting on the fence, Brev. I don't know.
I don't know. Must be hurting.
It is, man. It is.
You are.
No, I'll go.
Panel.
No, I'll go Williams 5th, Alpine 6th. 4th.
There we go. 4th.
Yeah.
I've gone Red Bull.
This is where we do have a slight difference. I've gone Mercedes. Because I want to believe they've sorted their issues, but because the conditions in Bahrain were very similar to how the car performed well last year, I am yet to see or believe that they may have potentially fixed their problems, their temperature issues and their condition issues. So until I get that proven, I cannot put them above 4th. So 4th Mercedes.
See, I can't put Red Bull above 4th in terms of I haven't seen them race.
That's
like that for all we know, their race pace.
Okay, wait. Okay, wait. Hold on. Can I just rephrase? Fourth. Wait. Below fourth, but above fifth, Liam Lawson. Fourth, Mercedes. Just above fourth, below third, Max Verstappen. There you go. That's my list.
Right.
That's where I'm going. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I look, yeah, I can probably see that happening, but I am going Red Bull fourth, and I'm going. That's not to say Max Verstappen won't just pull it out of the bag
And get pole.
but that's Max. But I think Red Bull probably starting with the fourth quickest car, Mercedes third quickest car.
Okay. Second, I think we all have the same two.
Ferrari,
McLaren.
and McLaren are favourites.
Yeah. Has to be, doesn't it? I know this isn't a preview for the Australian Grand Prix, but top three in Australia in the race.
Oh, we're doing that now already.
I'm throwing it out there. We can change it by the time we get to the preview, but I'm just curious.
Top three. What winners?
Yeah,
Winner,
quickly go.
second, third. Hamilton, Lando, Charles.
Ooh, Lando, Oscar, Lewis. I think McLaren run too.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's our testing video done, and we'll see you next week. Also, make sure to stay tuned for our Australia preview whenever that does roll around.